Today is the Vesākha day, the day of the birth, awakening and parinibbana of the Buddha. But what makes a person a Buddha? What is awakening? What happens at that time, the time of awakening? So in this talk, we'll go back in time to northern India, 528 years before the Common Era, 26 centuries ago. And we'll discuss what happened in that moment of enlightenment, especially the few hours before the enlightenment. What was going on in the mind of Siddhartha Gautama, and what are the processes and ultimate realities that occur at that time. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. In the full moon day of Vesākha, the Bodhisattva, the Prince Siddhartha Gautama, who had renounced his kingdom and went in search of enlightenment, of Buddhahood, of omniscience, of the state free from suffering. He is sitting cross-legged under the Bodhi tree with the determination to attain enlightenment, to attain omniscience, to attain Buddhahood. As the sun set and the first watch of the night began, which is from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., he engaged in meditations which are called Pubbenivasanusati, recollection of past lives. This is a type of superior knowledge which is based on samadhi, based on concentration, which he had already attained at that time, and enabled him to look into the past, into his past lives, and see how from the very beginning, when he was aspiring to become a Buddha, under the feet of the Buddha, previous Buddha Dipankara, he then fulfilled his perfections of giving, of renunciation, and so on, for countless lives, and perfected himself to the point where his qualities were so high and so intense that he could then, in this day, attain Buddhahood. All the merit he had accumulated throughout all those lives were for the sake of this very moment. And he is now sitting under the Bodhi tree, cross-legged, determined to attain Buddhahood. He had dispelled Mara and his retinue, and the sun sets. And now the Bodhisattva, our prince, destined for enlightenment, engages in Pubbenivasanusati jnana, abhinya, a type of superior knowledge based on samadhi, which he had already developed, and that enabled him to look into the past and see his previous lives. What had brought him from very long ago throughout many lives to this very moment in which he would attain Buddhahood. Long ago in the past, still yet unenlightened, he wished for enlightenment. And throughout many lives, he perfected himself with that purpose, accumulating great deeds of merit, of giving, of renunciation, of wisdom, and so on, and perfected himself to a point where now all the conditions were met and he was able to attain Buddhahood. So during the first watch of the night, from 6 to 10 p.m., during about 4 hours, he engaged in this contemplation based on this superior knowledge of recollection of past lives. He saw all the merits he had done and how he had lived in the past up to this moment. He removed any doubts about previous lives that he may have had, and by the end of that night, his knowledge of Pubbenivasanusati jnana was mature and clear. On the next watch of the night, the middle watch, from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., another 4 hours, he engaged in a different type of meditation, also based on samadhi, concentration. This is called Dibbacakku Abhinya, Dibbacakku Jnana, the knowledge of the divine or celestial eye. This enables the meditator and enabled the bodhisattva at that time to see not only living beings but also different realms of existence which are not visible to the naked eye. So based on this knowledge, this eye is actually a metaphor. It's actually knowledge. It's a type of knowledge that enables the meditator to see these things. So he was able to see beings, superior beings, inferior beings, in many different states of existence, those in states of suffering, those in states of happiness, and what wholesome deed or unwholesome deed they had accumulated in order to experience those results. So he was looking into kamma and vipaka. Deeds, wholesome or unwholesome, and their good or bad results. So he did that for those 4 hours which constitute the middle watch, Majjhimayana, and dispelled any doubts about kamma and vipaka, about kamma and how it produces results throughout the cycle of rebirth. He began contemplating on the 3rd watch of the night paticca samuppada, dependent origination, which is a part of the doctrine of the Dhamma, which is constituted by 12 factors and explains the round of rebirths. So any living being can be boiled down to these 12 factors. So the bodhisattva engaged in contemplations, here in this case is vipassana contemplations, which depend on concentration but is a different type of meditation. In Dhamma, there are 2 types of meditation. First is samatha meditation, tranquility or serenity meditation. This is the meditation which leads to samadhi, deep stages of concentration and absorptions called jhanas. So this is the practice which lead to tranquility or serenity. He had already developed that before the night of enlightenment. And now on the 3rd watch, he used that concentration which made his mind very strong, fast and clear, and used it to develop insight meditation. This is vipassana meditation. Vipassana meditation is the insight meditation which discerns, sees with knowledge based on concentration the ultimate realities which comprise the mental stream of beings and the body, material body of beings. So basically it envelops all the formations, conditioned realities which form our known world. So this vipassana meditation he developed, and he developed especially based on these 12 factors of dependent origination, paticca samuppada. Now his knowledge, as he went discerning again and again, his knowledge started to mature. And he went through each of these factors, understanding them not only theoretically. This is not a theoretical understanding. It's not simply rational thinking or logic. This is direct discernment. His mind is able to, at that time, discern, see phenomena directly based on his concentration and wisdom. So now on the 3rd watch of the night, from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., the Bodhisattva kept meditating. And he directed his mind to the factors of dependent origination. These are 12 factors which show how one phenomena serves as a condition for another one to arise. So it shows the conditionality or causal relationships between phenomena. And it has 12 factors. So he discerned these 12 factors internally and externally in living beings throughout many world systems. And he told it a number of 3.6 quadrillion insight knowledges based on these vipassana jnanas, based on these factors of dependent origination, in Pali called paticca samuppada. So during this contemplation, based on the factors of dependent origination, he saw what we call anuloma paticca samuppada, the normal, ordinary order of this, how these factors occur, starting with ignorance as a condition, which leads to the next factor, which leads to the next factor, and so on, explaining the round of rebirths, how it occurs. Later, he emphasized on the negative paticca samuppada, patiloma paticca samuppada, which emphasizes on how the cessation of one factor, starting from ignorance, leads to the cessation of the next, and the cessation of the next, and the cessation of the next, and so on. All these 12 factors cease, and the round of rebirths, suffering, birth, aging, and death comes to an end. So he focused on these 12 factors in both in order and in reverse order, in negative order. During his discernment, not only he did so internally, but also externally in other living beings. And in living beings far away in different world systems as well. So the Buddha did what is called Mahavajira Vipassana Jnana, which is particular of those who will attain Buddhahood. It is a set of vast number of insight knowledges which total 3.6 quadrillion insight knowledges, taken one after the other in a very swift manner, and discerning all these phenomena as they really are, with his insight, with his concentration, and focusing on the characteristics of these phenomena. So, all conditioned phenomena that were the objects of his insight contemplation were what we call formations. Phenomena, mental and material phenomena, which occur due to causes, and as soon as they arise, they perform their functions and vanish. Now, these phenomena that very swiftly arise and vanish they have this quality, they have this characteristic of being impermanent. That's a real characteristic of these phenomena. So the Bodhisattva, Siddhartha Gautama, focused on this characteristic of conditioned realities. Not only that, but he also focused on the second and even third characteristics, which are all necessary for enlightenment. The second being the unsatisfactory nature of all these impermanent phenomena. And the third, and even maybe most important one, is the non-self nature of all these conditioned phenomena. Actually, all dhammas, all realities whatsoever, are non-self. So during his practice of vipassana, on that third watch of the night, his knowledge went through stages of maturity called vipassana jnanas. They are insight knowledges which understand conditioned realities more and more deeply. The mind goes through stages of understanding, first focusing on arising and perishing, udayabhaya jnana, then focusing on the dissolution of realities, bhanga jnana, then focusing on the bhaya, what is called bhaya jnana, the knowledge of these realities as being somewhat fearful or dangerous. This is not fear itself, is the knowledge of these realities as fearful. And then adinava jnana, the knowledge which understands their danger and their disadvantages. After that, nibbida jnana, the knowledge that makes the mind dispassioned or disenchanted, disillusioned with realities. And after that, the desire for deliverance. This is also a type of knowledge, the knowledge of desire for deliverance. It is not a normal desire for deliverance like we may experience, for example, learning Dhamma. This is insight knowledge. It's a very mature, direct knowledge taking realities as object. Next is patisankha jnana, the knowledge of reflection, reflective knowledge. And finally, sankharopekha jnana, the knowledge which establishes the mind on a very neutral manner towards phenomena. So after his mind was established in Sankharopekkhāñāna, the knowledge of neutrality towards all conditioned phenomena, his mind then finally turned away from conditioned phenomena which are subject to defilements and took Nibbana as object. This mental process which occurred in his mind is called the Maggaviti, especially here in particular the Sotapatti Maggaviti. There are 4 Maggavitis, and in order to explain these mental processes to you, we'll use the board as assistance. So in order to understand what happened in the mind of the Bodhisattva during those few hours of enlightenment, I'll explain to you a little bit in brief what mental processes are, chittavitis. So our mind is a bit like a stream of conscious moments. It has not one, consciousness is not one continuous thing, but actually it's all divided into very subtle and very brief moments of awareness. Now these moments of awareness each have their object and perform their functions towards those objects and so on. And this stream of consciousness, we could call it the mental stream, has as its base consciousness what is called root consciousness. Root consciousness, so here I'll represent several number of root consciousness, mula chittas arising. So these mula chittas, they arise, for example, during sleep. When we are sleeping, we are not seeing objects, we are not hearing objects, but the mind is on this continuous flow of root consciousnesses, which is not just one, but a great number of them in succession. But in this succession of root consciousnesses, we cannot see anything, we cannot hear anything, we cannot think, we cannot meditate. So the mind, in order to do those activities, has to interrupt this flow of life continuum consciousness, another name for root consciousness, life continuum. Let me write it here. Life continuum consciousness, also called root consciousness. Okay? Root consciousness, a stream of these root consciousness. So in order to perform activities, in this case meditation, a mental process must occur. So this sequence must be interrupted, and the mind will turn to another object, because all of these root consciousness have the same object, which is kama kama nimitta or gati nimitta. Now, I won't go into that, but maybe those of you who know will understand. And a mental process begins. Now, this mental process has maybe more powerful consciousness, and it first turns towards a different object. In this case, it's an object of the mind door. So we have a first mind which is called Manodvara Vajana, MA. And we have Upachara, Anuloma Chitta, Gotrabhu Chitta, and our first Sotapatti Magga Chitta. And then we have, in the case of the Buddha, 3 Palachittas. Okay? And then the mental process of the path, of the noble path, comes to an end. And again, the root consciousness, which is called Bhavanga, root consciousness, again arises in succession. So this is the mental process of the first stage of enlightenment. This actually may look like many conscious moments, but it actually happens in a very brief amount of time. So this one, I don't know if you can see, this is MA, which stands for Manodvara Avajana, is a mind that, or the consciousness that adverts or turns towards an object of the mind door. So in this case, it's a manodvara vajana which turns to an object which is a conditioned phenomena. Conditioned phenomena. Okay. So it has a conditioned phenomena as object. Now, upachara, next conscious moment, this mind moment which adverts, passes away, vanishes. Another conscious moment appears, performing a slightly different function. This is called upachara, and this is called anuloma, N-U. Anuloma. These are just ways of representing the function of these consciousnesses. You don't need to focus too much on that. The most important one we'll discuss is the Maggacitta. So, upachara and anuloma will see that same conditioned phenomena as either impermanent or unsatisfactory or as non-self, one of those three characteristics. And so I'll put it here. It will see it as impermanent, the impermanent nature, or the unsatisfactory nature, or the non-self nature of these realities. One of these three characteristics is seen on these two chittas, two momentary moments. This is what was happening throughout his meditation. He was seeing these characteristics of these ultimate realities. So now on this final, or on this culmination of his insight, let's say, these two moments are doing the same, and this chitta arises, called Gotrabhu chitta. Gotrabhu means the change of lineage. Change of lineage. Change of lineage refers to the change between the lineage or the state of a worldling, a person who is unenlightened, to the state of a noble person. In Pali we call Ariya. So this change of state from an unenlightened person to an enlightened person, or to, from a normal person to a noble person, happens here. This is Gotrabhu chitta. And it actually takes Nibbana as object for the first time. But this chitta, even though it's the first consciousness which takes Nibbana as object, it cannot take it strongly enough to remove any defilements. So the most important consciousness, usually when we say, when do we take Nibbana as object for the first time? It's in this consciousness, we say, Maggacitta. Technically it's on Gotrabhu chitta, but Maggacitta is the most important chitta. So let's talk about Maggacitta. So Maggacitta, Magga. Magga in Pali means path. This is the noble path, in this case, noble path, right? Noble path. Because this consciousness contains the path factors, Maggangas, which are mental factors which constitute the path to enlightenment, so to say. They are 8, no? The noble eightfold path. Sammaditi, right view. Samma sankappa, the right thought. Samma vacha, right speech. Samma kammanta, right action. Samma vacha, samma kammanto. Samma ajiva, right livelihood. Samma ajivo. Samma vayamo, which is right effort. Samma sati, Sammasati. Sammasati, right mindfulness. And finally, Samma Samadhi, which is concentration, one-pointedness. So this is the Noble Eightfold Path. If you have studied the Four Noble Truths, this is the fourth Noble Truth. So this actually refers to mental factors which accompany this Magga Chitta. We have Chitta, which is consciousness, and we have another 36 mental factors. Mental factors, among which these are present. Okay? These are not all of them, but they are there. In the case of our Bodhisattva, his first Magga, his Sottapatti Magga, the stream entry path, was a first jhana path. So, first jhana has Vitakka. Vitakka, which is mental application or initial application. Vichara, which is sustained application. And Piti, which is rapture, very intense happiness. And Sukha, which is a pleasant feeling, could say pleasure. And Ekagata, which is concentration or one-pointedness. So he had also these factors over here. Actually, some of these overlap. For example, Samma Samadhi is Ekagata, for example. Here, Vitakka is Sammasankappa. Okay? So this is just for you to get an idea of what happened in that mind, in that moment. This is all in one mind moment. In a split of a second, this mind arises, Magga Chitta, accompanied by all these factors that he had been strengthening throughout many lives, throughout his practice of morality, concentration, and wisdom. So now the culmination, they finally occur, all these factors occur together, and Samadhi, the knowledge accompanying this Magga Chitta, called it the Jnana. Jnana is knowledge. So the Jnana in this Magga Chitta is able to not only see Nibbana, understand Nibbana, which is the object, the spiritual object, the goal of the spiritual path, but it's also able to destroy certain defilements, certain unwholesome states of the mind. So we have several classifications of unwholesome states, but for this case I'll use what are called fetters. 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 In Pali is Sanyojana. So these Sanyojanas, in this case we'll use 10 Sanyojanas, just to represent all the defilements. So in this case we have 10 Sanyojanas. I'll write them down first. We have Sakkaya Ditthi. Sakkaya Ditthi is the wrong view of personality. Is the wrong view that we have when we experience the world and we think I, and we think of us as a person. Then this is Sakkaya Ditthi, is a type of wrong view, a defiled state of the mind. Sakkaya Ditthi. It's one of the fetters. Fetters is like a bondage or something that holds beings in the round of rebirth. So Sakkaya Ditthi. Next one is Vicikicca. Vicikicca, double C over here. Vicikicca. This is doubt. Doubt about enlightenment, doubt about the qualities of enlightened ones, doubt about the path to enlightenment, doubt about past lives, doubt about future lives, doubt about conditioned realities and how they are caused, and their cause and effect relationships. So such types of doubts, spiritual doubts, we could say, is another fetter that binds beings to samsara. Sakkaya Ditthi Vicikicca Silavatta Paramasa. This is the next fetter. This is also actually a type of wrong view, ditti. It's actually a type of wrong view, but this is wrong view with regard to the correct practice to enlightenment. So in the religious world, we may see all types of different practices. And usually, all these people, these people intending to attain enlightenment, they do different practices which are very often not correct. So doing these practices, believing that they will lead to enlightenment, is this type of wrong view. It's a type of misunderstanding. It's a defiled state of mind. Here it's represented as Silabbata Paramasa. It's like an attachment to rituals and rites and so on. Wrong practices. Sakkaya Ditthi, Vicikicca, and Silabbata Paramasa. Now we have more, up to 10 of these sanyojanas. I'll slowly fill them up. But in this first moment of enlightenment, actually not really enlightenment, I should say, in this first stage of enlightenment, his knowledge, as I was saying, was able to destroy these first fetters. So the fetter of Sakkaya Ditthi was destroyed. From that moment onwards, this type of wrong view could not occur in the Bodhisattva's mind. Now he's a noble person, the noble Bodhisattva's mind. He also removed completely all types of doubts, spiritual doubts about the path, about the practice. And he removed also any this defilement of wrong view towards wrong practices as well. So his mind became purified of these three in the first path. So I'll put it here as the first Magga. Magga is path, remember? So in the first Magga, which is called Sotappatti Magga, in English, stream entry. The path of stream entry. This is the name of the first Magga. Like the first stage of enlightenment, let's say. So his mind, at that time, on that moment of Magga Chitta, with all these wholesome qualities, these are kusala chittasikas, arise, and especially jnana does this job of removing defilements. Now, another interesting thing that happens at that very moment, just in one mind moment, all this is happening. Imagine our stream of consciousness. Represent this as not only consciousness, but also our life, our mind and body. Okay? At some point, our life, since life depends on conditioned realities, it is also a limited thing. So life always comes to an end with death. This is inevitable. There is no living being alive that does not die. Some living beings in higher realms of existence really do live for a very long time. But their existence always comes to an end. So now in this case, as a bodhisattva, for example, he's a human being. He's this very special, out of the ordinary human being, but he's still a human being. His life will come to an end. Now, once the life comes to an end, if the mind still has defilements, if the mind still has craving, there are different options or different destinations that we may be propelled to have. So what keeps the samsara going, the round of rebirths going, is craving. Once we come to the near-death moment, craving propels us to another existence. And our good or bad actions will determine if that existence is a good one or, let's say, a bad one, in simple terms. So here, for example, a normal human being who is unenlightened, he might, after death, immediately, without any interval, be reborn, for example, in woeful states. Imagine this is another life, okay? Just representing it, no? Finishing or coming to an end of his human life, he's immediately reborn, for example, in woeful states. I'll put this as woeful states. Woeful states is just a general term which includes, for example, existences in hells, very painful existences, or existences as an animal as well is also included, or as some types of forsaken and suffering spirits. So these are woeful states. So after death, an unwholesome deed can lead to existences in woeful states. But if a wholesome deed, a good action, gives result, we may be reborn as a human being again. A human life is also possible to occur. After death as a human, you may become a human being again. Another possibility is to be reborn in sense heavens or sense sphere heavens. Sense sphere heavens. Okay. Heavens. These are 6 realms which are, let's say, above the human realm and have more and more pleasures and happiness connected with these lives. These are very more pleasant lives. They are called sense sphere heavens. We could call them Sagga. In Pali, Sagga. Sagga. Okay. So we have also possibility of being born in these heavens. And another possibility, if we develop meditation states, especially states of concentration, is to be reborn in Brahma realms. Brahma, realms of existence. These are, for example, this one could be the fine material. Fine material can be divided, the Brahma realms can be divided into mainly 2 parts. Fine material, which are 16 realms, and immaterial realms, which are 4 realms. These are a result of meditation development. To be reborn in these realms, one has to attain stages of jhana, at least the first jhana. So we have all these destinations after living our human life. Now, you can see some of these are bad destinations, especially this one, you see, if I put here, for example. This is a result of unwholesome deeds. Unwholesome or bad deeds. Unwholesome deeds. You can be reborn in these woeful states, or as a result of wholesome good deeds, you can be reborn on these other states. So here you have wholesome deeds. Okay, these are for meditation, as a result of meditation, and here other normal wholesome deeds such as charity, following precepts, and so on. So you have here bad destinations and you have good destinations, which you could be reborn in the round of rebirths, coming from a human life. Now, even the best, most, let's say, most pleasant existences and long existences around here, even they come to an end because, after all, they are produced by karma. Karma is a wholesome deed, and this deed has like a limited potential. It comes to an end. The deed itself comes to an end, so the result, the life that results from that deed, also at some point comes to an end. So even immaterial realms, for example, which they have lives which are very extensive, very long lives, they all come to an end, and from there they can be reborn in different realms again and again and again. So not only we are reborn in higher realms, we can also be reborn in lower realms depending on the action that we have done and which action is giving result at that time. So none of these lives is actually safe from the sufferings of the round of rebirth. Being reborn here is like a temporary safety, let's say. But again, you can be reborn as a human. Again, you can be reborn as a wholesome, in the woeful states and so on. So the round of rebirths, we could say it's a place where there is no real safety. There is no place where you can where you can be free from birth, aging, death, sorrow, lamentation, disease, and separation, and so on. So these states are bound with the round of rebirth. Now, on this moment of Magga, on this first Sotapatti Magga, stream entry path, the noble path arose in the mind of the Bodhisattva, some of these future possibilities were removed. I'll refer to them as future sufferings, because our Bodhisattva is here as a human, now in his case, and here in his life, right? He's sitting under the tree of enlightenment, the Bodhi tree, and the first Magga occurs. I'll put it as maybe blue color. The first Magga occurs. Okay, Sotapatti Magga occurs. The first one occurs. When this first stage of enlightenment occurs, certain defilements were removed, so those defilements are destroyed, and with the abandonment of those defilements, some of these future possibilities are also abandoned. This is called, maybe we could call it the destruction of future suffering, abandonment or letting go of the future suffering which could arise in samsara if this first Magga had not occurred. So with this first Magga, all the possibilities of being reborn in woeful states are completely removed. So one cannot be born anymore in the hells as an animal or as forsaken spirits and so on. So it's a great achievement. In terms of samsara, a lot of our suffering comes from these woeful states. So this person who has attained the first stage of enlightenment, he is free from this possibility. Now he can only be reborn as a human being or above, and there is also a limit to that. So as a human being, let's consider this one life, so another life and another life. So altogether, up to 7 lives. Up to 7 lives, it is possible that the person may still experience in samsara up to 7 lives as a human being or in the sense sphere heaven. So here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 7. Not more than that. So this first path also removes any possibility of any future birth, aging, and death beyond the 7th life in the realm of the senses, in the central realm. Okay, so this is the future suffering eradicated by the first noble path. So now, our Bodhisattva experienced this noble path. This is the consciousness that we were talking about for all this time, most of this time. And all of those defilements are eradicated on this conscious moment. And that future suffering is also eradicated on this mind moment. Here, the very important is the object of all these consciousnesses over here. All of these consciousnesses, I'll put them as yellow. All of them take Nibbana as object. Now, I won't discuss much in detail about what Nibbana is, but in brief, the whole world of formations, all the phenomena that we experience throughout our lives, and the Bodhisattva as well, are all conditioned phenomena. Due to causes, they arise, they perform their functions, and they vanish. But Nibbana is an element or a reality that exists, but it doesn't arise or vanish. It does exist, but does not arise or vanish. So it's unlike any other conditioned phenomena. It's called the unconditioned. It has no conditions, and it is different from everything else that we may consider worldly, our worldly experience. So Nibbana is this element which is eternal. It doesn't pass away. And because it is eternal, it is not unsatisfactory, but satisfactory. And just like any other phenomena, it is also non-self. So attaining Nibbana is not realizing a self, not realizing our personality. It's not that. So Nibbana is this element, unconditioned, eternal, which has this characteristic of peace and purity. And your mind can only see such state if the mind is pure and inclined towards it. And in order to see this unconditioned state, the mind has to, so to say, let go of the conditioned states. So this is what is happening here in this first moment of this first path. The mind is taking, you see, comes from taking formations as object, but letting go of formations due to wisdom, the mind takes the unconditioned as object. And this first moment, especially over here, this is the most important, is when the defilements are then destroyed stage by stage. So this process of enlightenment actually takes 4 of these mental processes. It happens in 4 stages, so to say. So this was the first stage. Then the Bodhisattva afterward, in his case, he kept meditating. Because after this process of enlightenment, there are a few things that the Bodhisattva reflected on. One is the Magga. He reflected on the path that had just occurred. He understood it. Another thing he reflected on was the Phala. Phala is the fruition. So the fruition consciousness, it's here in the viti, in the mental process, is that consciousness, Phala. These 3 consciousnesses that also take Nibbana as object, and they are the result of this important path consciousness. So this path consciousness produces as a result immediately these Palachittas. So this is a Kusala Chitta, for those of you who understand, it's a wholesome consciousness, and these are Vipaka Chittas, resultant consciousness, and they are a result of this very Magga over here. So this, when you study Dhamma, you see that normally the result of something takes quite a long time to come, but this has immediate result. So it actually shows one of the qualities of the Dhamma of being akalika, with immediate results. So whenever one achieves this Magga, immediately one experiences the results. We call the fruition. So this fruition consciousness is, you only experience 3 mind moments, the Buddha 3 mind moments. For other people it could be 2, depending on here certain different possibilities here. Here it could be parikama. There is one extra possibility, extra chitta. But in his case it was this mental process. So this palachitta, after this mental process has ended, it becomes like an attainment. We call it in Pali samapati. That whoever attained it, he is able to enter that attainment and dwell in this attainment of Palasamapati with Nibbana as object. So even though the moment of Magga is just one mind moment and it doesn't occur again, Palasamapati, the Palachittas, the fruition, you can develop and you can dwell in it and you can, so to say, enjoy that attainment that you have, that freedom that you have achieved. So this is called Palasamapati, the attainment of fruition. But our Bodhisattva, on that night, immediately after this first step of enlightenment, he reflected on Magga, he reflected on this Pala that had occurred, and he reflected on the Nibbana element that he had attained, and he had never before seen in previous lives Nibbana element. And he also reflected about the Pahina Kilesa. Okay, Pahina Kilesa. Kilesa are defilements, okay, so we were discussing, there are many classifications of defilements, so we were using the sanyojanas, right, the fetters. So here, pahina. Pahina kilesa are the defilements that are abandoned, or that were abandoned by that first magga. So what were they? Sakkaya ditthi, vichikicha, and silabata paramasa, right? So those first defilements were abandoned by the first magga. And then apahina kilesa. Apahina kilesa are the defilements that were not abandoned by that first magga. So defilements are very strong in our mind. You know, throughout samsara they have a very strong roots in our minds. So one magga, one path, one noble path is not enough to eradicate all these defilements. It requires 4 of them. So it's like 4 stages. So in this case, you have apahina kilesa, which are some remaining defilements. We had a list of defilements here, somewhere. Here. Sakkaya ditthi, vichikicha, silabata paramasa. So we have still some remaining defilements. I'll fill them up as we discuss the next maggas, okay? So this is what is abandoned by the first magga. Now, any person could, having attained the first path, you could get up, finish your meditation session, and live as a person who has attained the first path. It's possible. We'd call this type of person a sotapanna, a stream enterer. He can live his life. His mind is already purified to some extent. It's quite pure. This person doesn't kill. This person doesn't lie, and so on. He has many, many good qualities. But his mind still has some defilements, some uneradicated defilements. So our bodhisattva had set with the determination of attaining full liberation, Buddhahood, omniscience. So he kept on meditating. So again, he paid attention to the vipassana practice he was doing, and again brought his mind to conditioned states. So he experienced the unconditioned states, unconditioned nibbana, but just dwelling in that nibbana would not take him to the next level. So he again brought his mind back to vipassana practice, and again started analyzing and discerning those factors of paticca samuppada, of dependent origination, and seeing them as impermanent, seeing them as unsatisfactory, seeing them as non-self, and so on and so forth, until his knowledge again developed from Udayabhayāṇana, Bhangañāṇa, Bhayañāṇa, Adinavañāṇa, and so on, up to Sankarupikañāṇa. Now, when, after some time meditating again vipassana, his knowledge became mature once again, and another path arose in his mental continuum. So we have a second path. This is his mental stream. We have bhavanga chittas, which are, remember, bhavanga chittas, which are the mental continuum. I'll put it in brief. And here we have the second noble process. So the process of the second magga. Okay, these are bhavanga chittas, and so on, and so forth. Here we have also bhavanga chittas, mental continuum consciousness, the root consciousness. So here, again, his mind also adverted to an object, which in this case is a conditioned reality. Again, we have the same chittas, upachara, anuloma, and instead of gotrabhu, we have vodana. That's the only difference. Vodana is a mind, since gotrabhu changes the lineage to Aryas, so it doesn't happen again. He's already Arya. So in this vodana chitta, the mind is just purified in order for the next magga to occur. So now this is the second magga. This second magga is called Sakadagami. Sakadagami. I'll explain why this name. So Sakadagami Magga, and then we have here again, Pala Pala Pala, 3 fruitions, which are of the second path. Okay? So we have, you see again, another mental process occurring in his mind. This happens very quickly, but it's a very important process. Now, the objects are the same, a conditioned reality as impermanent, unsatisfactory or non-self, and here we'll take Nibbana again as object. Now, on this Magga, what happens? This is the second path. So the defilements, some defilements are eradicated, but here among this list of 10, none of them is eradicated. But overall, all defilements that remain are attenuated, are weakened. So in this second path, stream entry first, we have once returner. So, okay, this is the second Magga. The second Magga. This one doesn't destroy any of these defilements, just weakens them. And it eradicates a little bit more of the future suffering that could arise. So let's put it in yellow. So he practiced, and the first Magga attained. He did some more meditation practice, and let's say the second Magga attained after a while. The second path. Now the second path, this has been already removed, right? So now the second path limits his future lives up to one single human life only. This is why this is called, the second path is called Sakadagami Magga. Sakadagami Magga, which means once returner. I wrote over here, a once returner, no? This is a yellow color, right? Once returner. You can only return one time to the human realm. This is why it's called once returner. So that's the second path. That's the liberation that brings the second path. The first one was a blue one, right? Good. So now, after this path occurred with this mental process again, then again the Bodhisattva, now a noble Bodhisattva, reflected on the Magga that had arisen, the second Magga, Sakadagami Magga, on the Pala that arisen, which became available to him as an attainment, and on Nibbana once again, the Nibbana element, and on the defilements that were removed in this case. There are no defilements completely removed, but they are all attenuated. And the uneradicated defilements, which are still those 7 left, according to the Sanyojana method. No? So that's the second path. Now the Bodhisattva could have stopped his meditation, but he was determined to attain enlightenment, full enlightenment, so he kept on going. He brought his mind once again to conditioned realities and started removing his ignorance about those conditioned realities, seeing them as they really are, their causes, their effects, and their true characteristics of impermanent, unsatisfactory, and non-self. And then his knowledge once again went through the stages of development that we had already discussed, and he finally reached the third path. Once his knowledge was mature enough, then the third path occurred on him, third stage of enlightenment. This third stage is called Anagami. Anagami Magga occurred to him. Anagami. Anagami means one who does not come back, one who does not return. Does not return to what? I'll tell you now. So this Anagami Magga, let's put it as pink. Okay, this Anagami Magga, again, taking Nibbana, again for the third time, with this third magga, taking Nibbana just a little deeper, this eradicates certain defilements over here. So this was eradicated by the first, right? This was eradicated by the first. The second just weakens the others. Now the third one eradicates 2 over here. Okay. 2 of these 10 defilements are removed on the third path of enlightenment, Silabhata Paramasa. We have Kamaraga. Kamaraga is the lust. Raga is lust, type of attachment, lust, thirst for sensual objects, sense objects in general, anything that we experience with the eyes, ear, nose, tongue, body, and so on, with the 5 senses. So here he abandoned all attachment, all lust towards any of these objects of the senses, Kamaraga. And he also abandoned Vyapada. Vyapada is also abandoned. Vyapada here is the aversion, anger, or any of the states which are usually under the umbrella term of dosa. Dosa, which is aversion. So with this third path, he abandons sensual lust and all types of negative minds, of anger, irritation, and aversion in general. Okay? Now there's more. Of the future suffering that could still arise, you see, could still have arisen for him, this third path abandons some of them. A little more of his suffering is limited. In the sense sphere heaven, since he has removed all sensual lust, he cannot be reborn anymore in this sense sphere heavens. You see, he can still be reborn in Brahma realms or in immaterial realms. This is still available for a person who attained the third path. Okay, I'll put, for example, the third path over here. Yes, third stage of enlightenment reduces your possibilities of rebirth even further. Now, the Bodhisattva did the same reflections, of reflection on the path, in this case the third path, also reflected on the fruition, or the third fruition which became available to him as like an attainment, samapati. And he reflected again on Nibbana element, the peace of Nibbana, and the pahina kilesa, which are those defilements that he had eradicated. He understood which defilements were abandoned, and the defilements that remained. So he knew, at this time he knew he had to keep on practicing. There were still defilements in his mind. So he kept on meditating with his vipassana practice, paticca samuppada, and all the conditioned realities as impermanent, as unsatisfactory, and as non-self. Deepening his wisdom, his understanding, and so on. Now, when his wisdom was again mature enough, then a process very much like this one with the fourth magga occurs in his mind. This is the fourth and final magga. So that fourth magga over here is called Arahatta magga. Arahatta magga. Okay. This Arahatta magga. Arahatta magga. Okay, this is the fourth magga. I'll put it as red. Now, this fourth and last magga, noble path, is the final hit on the defilements. It destroys all the remaining defilements over here. I'll write them down. So, Kamaraga Vyapada. Now we have, I'll run out of space, but Ruparaga. This is lust with regard to fine material attainments. very meditative attainments, and those very high Brahma existences. This is Rupa Raga. So he abandoned Rupa Raga. He also abandoned Arupa Raga. Arupa Raga, which is less towards immaterial attainments, which are also meditative attainments in the realm of Samadhi, and also the lives that they produce, which are immaterial lives that last for a long time. So he also abandoned any attachment, any lust for those immaterial attainments and immaterial lives, Arupa Raga. Now, I'll write over here, next one he abandoned with this fourth path was Mana. Mana is conceit. Conceit. He abandoned conceit. Any type of pride, he abandoned at this last stage, Mana. Another defilement that was abandoned was Uddhacha. Uddhacha was abandoned. This Uddhacha is a type of restlessness that occurs in any unwholesome mind, has a little bit of restlessness. So he abandoned all types of restlessness. It could never arise in his mind ever again. Mana, Uddhacha, and final and last defilement over here, Avidya. Avidya, sorry, this is short. Avidya was removed. Avidya is the ignorance. This is a spiritual ignorance. Ignorance here in this case is not, for example, I don't know what time it is, or for example. Ignorance is seeing a reality in a way that is not true. Seeing something that is impermanent as permanent. This is ignorance. Or seeing something that is actually unsatisfactory as satisfactory. This is ignorance. Or seeing something that is non-self as self. This is also ignorance. It's a type of spiritual ignorance. So he abandoned, at that stage, he abandoned all of this avidya, ignorance, which serves as a type of base or root for all the other unwholesome states. So these are the 10 sanyojanas and how they are abandoned. This one was abandoned by the third path, and the fourth path abandons the remaining 5, you see? Now, future suffering, you see, since he, look at this, since he removed attachment to fine material attainments and their lives, and he removed lust and attachment to immaterial realms and attainments, these cannot occur to him again. You see, Brahma realms, fine material, cannot occur to him. He cannot be reborn in Brahma realms anymore. And he cannot be reborn in immaterial realms. So now all possibilities of rebirth for this noble person have been completely eradicated. Any possibility of birth, aging, death, suffering, pain, despair, and all the suffering of samsara has been completely eradicated. For us to have an idea, the amount of lives that we could experience if we don't experience these 4 paths, these 4 stages of enlightenment, would just continue going. As long as there is attachment, as long as there is ignorance, as long as there is hatred, there will be rebirth. And with rebirth comes aging, death, suffering, disease, and so on. So the amount of suffering that has been eradicated, abandoned, right now on these 4 paths for the bodhisattva sitting under the enlightenment tree is immeasurable. Immeasurable. So this is the liberation that you attain by attaining these 4 maggas. So in the end, after his Arahata Magga and Arahata Pala fruition, then the Pala, Arahata Pala now, the 4th Pala fruition became available to him as an attainment, as I said, no? A type of attainment that throughout his life he constantly entered on this attainment. This attainment kind of tranquilizes the mind, pacifies the mind. So even during his teachings, when the Buddha was teaching, from time to time he would enter this attainment and dwell in the bliss of Nibbana. And he also reflected on Nibbana, the element, again, one last time. And in this case, the only difference is that he didn't have to reflect in any uneradicated defilement. This is the only one that doesn't occur after the fourth path. So altogether we have 5 reflections after the first path, another 5 reflections after the second path, another 5 after the third path, and only 4 after the fourth path. So altogether, 19 reflective knowledges. These are called Paccavekkhana jnanas. Paccavekkhana jnanas. Jnana is knowledge. Paccavekkhana jnanas. Altogether, 19. So this all happened. Each of these is actually one mental process. We're not going into detail, too much detail now. I want you to see how the process of enlightenment happens, and for you to see that it is something that, let's say, produced or arised from within. It is not bestowed by someone else. It is not given by some God, enlightenment. Or you are not born enlightened. That's another thing. So after this Arahata Magga occurred to him on this last, okay, this I wrote as Sakadagami, but the same mental process could be the next one, Anagami. And the same mental process could be for Arahata. Okay, so after this final Magga occurred, at this point we can say he attained enlightenment. He became the Buddha. Buddha is a title, is not a name. Is the title of someone who eradicated all defilements and in this case attained the highest qualities. Now, when it comes to enlightenment, the word here is bodhi. Bodhi. Remember, we call this person before he attains bodhi, we call him bodhisatta, right? Bodhi. Satta. Bodhisatta is the being, the living being, who is destined for enlightenment, or enlightenment being. It doesn't mean he is enlightened. Actually, he is not enlightened. But he is on the way to a certain enlightenment because of all the qualities and all the merits he had accumulated. So, Bodhi is enlightenment, and it refers to this Magga Chitta, especially the Arahata Magga Chitta, when all the defilements are abandoned. In the case of the Buddha, all defilements, even very subtle tendencies of unwholesome defilements, even very subtle tendencies are removed from his mind. So his mind is completely purified. From this moment onwards, no defilements can arise to him. All 12 unwholesome consciousnesses cannot arise for him. He only has functional consciousness and resultant consciousnesses. So now Bodhi, talking about enlightenment, just to expand a little bit on enlightenment. Enlightenment is of 3 types. What our Buddha experienced is the 3rd type, Samma Sambodhi. Okay? But there are another 2 types of enlightenment, which is Savaka Bodhi and Pacceka Bodhi. Bodhi. Okay? So these are all enlightenments, Bodhi, 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 but slightly different. In which respect? A Savaka Bodhi. Savaka comes from the root to hear, to listen. This is the enlightenment of a disciple, one who listens the Dhamma and practices accordingly and attains this purification from defilements, this freedom from samsara. He attains Nibbana, the same way the Buddha attained. but his wholesome qualities are not as strong as the Buddha. So there are some differences, but in terms of freedom from samsara, freedom from rebirth, and freedom from the kilesas, they are both all freed from that. So a Savaka Bodhi. So nowadays, if you attain enlightenment according to the Buddha's words, you will attain Savaka Bodhi. You also go through the 4 stages of Sotapanna and Sakadagami and Anagami and Arahata. And you become a Savaka. Savaka Buddha sometimes is also used. Normally we use the word Buddha for Sammasambuddhas, like our Buddha, Sammasambodhi, who attained Sammasambodhi. But the word Buddha can more carefully used also to refer to Savakas. In this case, it would be Savaka Buddha, a person who attained Savaka Bodhi. Next type of Bodhi is Pacceka Bodhi. Now, this one depends on hearing the Dhamma, hearing, learning, listening. It depends on someone else telling you what to do. But these two, Pacceka Bodhi and Sammasambodhi, arise by themselves. Arise by themselves. It doesn't depend on someone else telling you what to do. It doesn't depend on instructions. But this Pacceka Bodhi is a person who attains enlightenment by himself. So that's much, much harder than doing it after having heard the instructions. So this person has developed himself, developed his perfections much further. So he's able to attain enlightenment by himself, but his good qualities are not fully developed, not like Sammasambodhi. So he's somewhat unable to teach the Dhamma like the Sammasambodhi is able to. He lacks omniscience, he lacks the wisdom to be able to put all these Dhammas, all these truths into words and express it and put it into instructions for others to follow and attain it. So he is called sometimes a silent Buddha. He is enlightened, he put an end to his samsara, his suffering, and he has no more defilements, but he is unable to enlighten others. So this is Pacceka Bodhi. And what our Bodhisattva attained is the highest spiritual attainment. This is the highest spiritual attainment. There is no spiritual attainment higher than this. Is Sammasambodhi. Sammasambodhi could say is perfect enlightenment, full enlightenment by himself. Not only he does it by himself without a teacher, but he also accomplishes all good qualities, not wholesome, sorry. They are wholesome before his enlightenment. After enlightenment, they are actually functional. But all his bright qualities are fully developed. His wisdom doesn't encounter any hindrance. He can know whatever he wants. This is called omniscience. Is a long and deep and complicated topic. But he attains what Theravada says to be omniscience. Whatever the Buddha inclines to know, he knows. It doesn't mean he knows everything at the same time. This is impossible. But because of the way the mind works, the mind takes one object at a time. So, and the Buddha is no exception. But his wisdom, his faculty of wisdom is able to reach and able to see and able to understand whatever he wishes to. So whatever he discerns, whatever he inclines his mind to, he can clearly and swiftly understand. So that gives him, and some other abilities, that gives him the right tools to become the teacher, the real teacher of the Dhamma, the real master of not only having attained enlightenment, but also becoming the guide for others, and becoming the teacher for others, and enlightening others. So from this moment onwards, he is the Buddha that we pay respect to, that we venerate because of these qualities that he developed and achieved. And he left us instructions based on his wisdom that he developed with this Sammasambodhi, he left the instructions for other people to follow on his steps as well. So it is possible for you right now to develop, to practice these things, the teaching of the Buddha, morality, concentration, and wisdom step by step, and attain Savaka Bodhi, attain Sotapatti Magga, attain Sakadagami Magga, attain Anagami Magga, and attain Arahatta Magga. It is possible to attain these things if you just practice according to the Buddha's teachings diligently, faithfully, for enough time. So after the Buddha became the Buddha, Arahatta Magga arose in his mind, and all defilements and future suffering was eradicated. He then reflected on his attainment and all that had brought him there at that time, and great happiness arose in his mind. And at that time of his enlightenment, the night ended and dawn broke, and several wonderful events occurred. Some miraculous events occurred. You have to consider all the merits that this person had done for countless lives for this very moment to occur. And all the effort and all the wholesome qualities and all eventually the bright qualities that appeared in his mind. So all of these conditions together gave rise to this series of miraculous events. For example, great light spread across the world systems, and flowers blossomed everywhere, and fruits appeared on trees, and the fires of hell were extinguished temporarily, and the animals were safe. Hungry ghosts were free from hunger and thirst, and those who were blind began to see, those who were deaf began to hear, and so on. Many miraculous events happened at that very moment of his full enlightenment. Even the earth started to quake. An earthquake happened, just like it happened on his birth, and just like it happened then afterward with his passing into Parinibbana. So all these miraculous events show the greatness of this attainment and how rare it is. The Buddha, the appearance of a Buddha is extremely rare in the world because it takes so long and it is so difficult to attain. So now is a time in which we are living, in which there is the dispensation of a Buddha. He appeared in the world, he found the path by himself, and he taught this, and he left extensive instructions recorded in the Tipitaka. So by studying and by practicing these instructions, we are able to follow on his path, which was his wish. When he could have attained enlightenment long ago, way before he became a Buddha, he could have attained enlightenment. He had the qualities enough. But he wanted to attain full enlightenment in order to help others cross the ocean of samsara. So that was his desire, not only to free himself, but also to free others. So I encourage you this Vesākha to undertake your sila and to do your meritorious deeds, to study the Dhamma left by the Buddha that is still available. We still have the Tipitaka in its integrity. And practice as much as you can meditation and encourage others to do so, to fulfill as much conditions as you can in order to achieve this final peace, final liberation, this true happiness that only comes with this enlightenment. So, reflecting on this attainment, he was filled with happiness, and mentally he recited these two verses that I'll recite now for you, which is recited by every single Buddha. So a Buddha only appears one at a time. So now we are in the dispensation, the time, in the era of Buddha Gautama, which was the Prince Siddhartha Gautama. But before him there were other Buddhas, long ago in the past, And in the future, there will be also other Buddhas. But the time it takes for another Buddha to appear is very, very, very long time. Even world cycles may pass without another Buddha appearing. So now the path is opened and it's possible to attain enlightenment. So I encourage you to make the most of this time, make the most of your time, and try to fulfill these conditions by making merits. So he mentally recited this traditional stanza that is very well known, and he did it mentally after his enlightenment. Anyeka jati sangsarang sandhavisang anipisang gahakarang gavesanto dukha jati punapunang gahakara kadithosi punagehang nakahasi sappate phasukha bhanga gahakutang visankhatang visankaragatang chitang tanhanang kayamajjagam. The basic meaning of it is that he has attained enlightenment, and he reflects that through countless births in samsara, he was looking for what he calls the house builder, which in this case refers to craving. Craving is the house builder. Craving is what takes you to the next life. This is the house, he means. So he was looking for the carpenter, the house builder. And now, with Arahata Magga having arisen, he has seen the house builder. And all the house builder tools and the rafters and the ridgepole that the carpenter needs to make a house were now destroyed. This means that all defilements were destroyed. So his mind attained Nibbana, the unconditioned element, and the end of craving. So now to conclude this talk, I'll recite this Jayaparita, which you may be familiar with, which is somewhat connected to this event of his enlightenment. And this Parita itself, this protective safeguard, also wishes you to attain the same victory, the same safety. So remember, this is not bestowed on you by another. Do not wait for enlightenment. Don't wait for wholesome qualities to occur in your mind. You have to put the necessary effort. With faith, you should put effort and develop your mindfulness and develop your concentration and develop your wisdom. Always following the proper instructions not to do wrong practices. No? So remember this and put effort in order to develop these qualities and attain enlightenment for yourself. Jayanto bodhiya mule sakhyanang nandivadhano evameva jayo hotu jayassu jayamangale aparajita pallanke sise puthu vipukhale abhiseke sabba buddhanang akkapatto pamodati sunakhatang sumangalang suppabhatang suhutitang sukhano sumuhutto cha suyithang brahmacharisu padakhinang kaya kammang vacha kammang padakhinang mano kammang panidhite padakhine padakhinani kattvana labantathe padakhine te atthaladha sukhita virulha buddha sahasane aroga sukhita hotha sahasabbe hinyatipi bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sada sotti bhavantu te bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba dhammanubhavena sada sotti bhavantu te bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba sanghanubhavena sada sotti bhavantu te.